you, Mr. Philippou. I think it's time to proceed to the discussion and read out the questions to our speakers. I would like to start off with Mr. Haralambidis. Mr. Haralambidis, considering the energy crisis we're currently facing because of skyrocketing fossil fuel prices, I would like to ask you, what is the key to become independent of fossil fuels? Well, the answer has been provided by science, politics, and society. Well, by science, politics and society lag behind. The response is energy saving, warehousing, and energy recovery. It is a threefold solution. We cannot go forward by reproducing the same model. We cannot go forward without warehousing of storage of energy. Energy saving, energy storage, energy recovery. We are a country blessed with sun, wind, and landscape that allows for it, but we are lacking the political will. There are some minor steps taken forward by politicians. The energy saving program Exikonomou does not lead to emission neutral to net zero emission buildings. We should aim at more than 150,000 house renovation projects instead of 30,000 currently aimed at. We should also look into the steps we're taking into the wrong direction. We have a war raging. Behind geopolitics, there are also pipelines involved, and at the same time, instead of speeding up independence from fossil fuels, we keep building pipelines. Of course, out of commercial interest, but and the environmental crisis, the global climate crisis is not on the table. The key challenge currently faced with climate change. Thank you.
Next question. Next question is for Mr. Kirkitsos. You said that there have been problems with management of waste for PV panels. Let me ask you, what was the major weakness of the system? Can you please repeat the question? You said problems with PV panels. Yes, my question is, what was the major weakness in this system, with the system of photovoltaic system? Well, first, the cost. Cost was one problem, because there was supposed to be participation in alternative management by recycling and photocycling. We had two systems in Greece. At the end, this recycling was not included. There is only photocycling, but because it is not expert, it is specializing in electrical appliances. So there was a proposal for PV panels, but there is a cost there. I think producers of PV systems should make this proposal, and so that we could have the real cost. This was one problem. The other problem here lies in the reserve fund, the same as in the wind farms. PV panels at their end of life take several years to be decommissioned, so we need to store the resources instead of the state having to consume the reserves. a reserve is mandatory by law at 40%. And when I was there, and Nikos Charalambidis, we had suggested for this problem to be addressed. You cannot have the resources consumed and at the end have no resources for alternative management. I think this is something that needs to be regulated once the wind sector goes into one single system. That was the major weakness, the major problem. The others were only minor. Okay, Mr. Charalambidis would like to ask something. No, I would like to add something to what Mr. Kirkitsou said. We should also add the parameter of time. Legislation provided for the necessary framework to be put in place for recycling of photovoltaics. This has existed since 2014, but today in 2022 there is no operational scheme. So we should see what we must not do. This can happen either by streamlining the market so that we do not end up with a theoretical scheme. And it might sound unpleasant for Mr. Philippou, but energy recovery is not circular economy or recycling. It may be this last resort, but before we should see what materials we can recycle more so that the end product can be more recyclable. I have seen several efforts on the part of the government or governments to call combustion and energy recovery from combustion as a secular economy, but we have to be very cautious with that. Mr. Philippou, would you like to add something? My point is that in mass destruction of blades, it's difficult to have a technique give a solution. I mean, reusing blades in a different way or reusing different components of the wind turbines. This is quite slow. The fastest one and the most effective one and the most promising one is thermal processing, heat processing, which is a sustainable solution because we produce energy. So we go back to some form of energy, either for good or for bad. Okay, next question concerns the repowering process mentioned by Mr. Kasimis. Let me ask you, has this whole process been accepted by the local society, especially on the islands? Well, our experience in this entire repowering process has been that the society is maturing more and more concerning the alternative sources of energy and wind farms. The acceptance of wind farms on the islands was quite broad. Of course, what will help more in the future is that unfortunately, now with the events in Russia and Ukraine, it is proven that produced energy is cheaper when it is produced from alternative energy sources instead of fossil fuel. Unfortunately, this is evidenced in a very negative manner, but let's keep the message that we have to speed up the process for a bigger penetration of renewable energy sources, and then the acceptance from local societies will be higher and faster.
Well, nevertheless, is there anything that you would see being done in another way in this process? Concerning the regulatory framework, all conditions are set for equipment management. There are processes in place. As already indicated in my presentation, we need to step up the alternative management process. It is understandably not something that we are moving forward very fast. We need to actually extend the lifetime of equipment. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to add a final remark. It is